Okay. Okay, well, I've discussed a little bit about the fork we made for this bike. And now I just want to follow up on what we did to the frame and talk a little bit about why I made the changes that I made to this bike. And I know I've probably said this a bunch of times, but if this is the first time you're checking in on this video, I did a whole build series on this bike frame back in 2018 where I talked about this whole build process, made a whole video series about it. So I have that on my channel if you're very interested to know. But today what I want to do is just focus on the changes that we're making to this bike frame, why we're making these changes, and then I want to just show you the fork and everything that we have right now. Another video I'll be making is I will be putting this bike back together and riding it again, so that'll be in a separate video.
All right, here we are with a repair report on Henry Wildberry's 30,000 plus mile first Fitz. Yeah? Something like that? So over those many miles, Henry started off with the notion that he wanted a super flexible, rando-y, lightweight bike, and that's what I delivered. And over the time, he kind of figured out that he wanted a stiffer ride. So we removed the down tube and put in a thicker one. Yeah, so it went from 747, 86, 858 tube to taking the 858 out and replacing it with 969. I guess we could have went 171, although I'm not sure if there was 28.6. But anyways, it's a stiffer tube, and we're going to see how much he can tell. It made a difference.
Yeah, and when you were doing this repair, talk about how you did a couple of repairs at the same time.
So the other frame was a crust repair, crust bikes repair, and the customer accidentally dropped the frame and put a dent in the down tube. So he wanted the down tube replaced, and it's a TIG welded frame, this being a lugged frame. So when I do repairs, I try to save them up, so like I'll do them in a week, kind of get into the zone of doing repairs. So I did yours first, and I thought it was going to be more difficult because in the past I had replaced a TIG welded down tube before, and though that was a pain in the ass, I thought this was going to be harder because I'd never done a lugged one. And the lugged one ended up being easier because I cut the tubes here and here, so this section goes away, and then just have little nubs sticking out. And in my mind, I thought it was going to be very difficult to heat the lug evenly enough to be able to pull the little section out. But it wasn't as hard as I thought. Yeah, just heat it up, and I had some weight on it, so it was already kind of pulling a little bit, and it pulled enough that it dropped out, and there wasn't a lot of silver stuck to the remnant of the tube. So there wasn't tons of cleanup I had to do up here, and same idea for here. But this is easier because you could get a grinder in there and really clean out the excess. Luckily, it took off a lot of the silver, like I said, came out, and there wasn't a lot of cleanup I had to do up here. But yeah, I pulled up your drawing from before, got the miter lengths, the angles, bada bing, bada boom, cut it up, put it back in, brazed it in, and it's ready for another 30,000 miles. Yeah, honestly, the lugged version of the repair is easier than the TIG welded one because though it's conceptually easier to see where everything needs to be on the TIG welded one, it's just you have to grind off all those welds, and that took a long time. Kind of made me want to get a power tool that I could do it faster, which I will if I decide I want to do another repair. I'm not saying I want to, but if I do, if it's one of my bikes, I'll have to, but I don't know if I want to do it for someone else's bike.
Yeah.
But yeah, we also replaced the cable stops with stainless ones because I noticed the ones that were on there were getting a little rusty, in part because I kind of shaped them and took off material, and so these ones are unadulterated and stainless steel and should be good to go.
So we got the frame back today. It's been powder coated and it's basically a new bike. This bike frame has about 30,000 miles on it, and I decided after all that time that there were a few things I didn't like about the way the bike was riding. And that is, with the original fork, which is this one, this is a low trail fork, and it has a very large fork offset or a fork rake in order to achieve that. So in the last video we just did, we made a new fork with less fork offset, and that's this fork in here. And this has also been freshly powder coated. This is the original fork that's been freshly powder coated. And I'm saving it because I want to have the option to be able to go back to the low trail geometry if I want to. And since this fork is still perfectly fine, I decided to just get the whole thing powder coated at the same time that the frame was getting repowder coated. And the frame is being repowder coated because one of the changes we made is we replaced the down tube with a new down tube that has a much thicker wall. So it's a stiffer tube. When I first made this bike frame, I asked John to make me the most flexible bike frame that he possibly could. And so he used really thin, and we're talking super thin walled, double butted, standard diameter tubing. And so the top tube has a 747 butting profile, and the down tube had an 858 butted profile. Standard diameter. So standard diameters are 25.4 top tube, 28.6 down tube, and a 28.6 seat tube. So what we did is John cut out the old down tube and he put in a new 28.6 down tube, but we went with a 969. And I chose 969 because after riding my Colnago, after riding the bike that I built for myself, I discovered that I liked a bike to be just a tiny bit stiffer. Not super stiff. I wasn't going for a bike frame that is like a carbon fiber racing bike for sprinting. I just wanted a little bit of stiffness because this bike has always been really, really flexible to the point of where you're going down a hill really fast. If you take your hands off the handlebars, the bike starts to shimmy. That's how flexible it is. And so I didn't really like that sensation that much. But I also thought that part of that was due to the fact that the fork was designed with a very low trail. And the low trail makes a bike steer very quickly. So my thinking was that there's a possibility that the low trail quickness with the really flexible frame was really exacerbating the shimmy phenomena that this bike was experiencing. Also low trail, and we're talking extremely low trail. When I had John build the bike, I asked for extremely low trail. So this is down in the low 30s for trail. And if you know anything about the trail numbers, low trail starts at 30 and goes up into the 40s. Mid trail kind of starts in the 50s and goes into the 60s. And then high trail is anything above 65, let's say, and higher. So being a 30 millimeter trail or 32 is extremely low. So we were really pushing all the limits when we went with this bike frame design. So now I'm kind of reeling it back in, and I decided for the fork, here, let me pull this fork out. So for the fork, I decided to go with a lot less fork offset, which is the distance from the center of the axle to the center of the steering tube. And what this does is it increases the trail a lot. Our calculated trail with this new fork is somewhere in the low 50s, which is kind of your standard road bike trail. Whereas with this one, this had a 65 millimeter offset and put the trail down in the low 30s, so 32, I believe. And the offset here, I think we went with 52 millimeters. So we went from 65 to 52. So quite a difference. So anyway, of course, as you know, I haven't ridden it yet, so I can't speculate or say exactly what this change is going to do. So we've got a new down tube, stiffer, same diameter, and a new fork for this bike. And we're gonna be building it up next, and we're gonna take it out on a test ride. And I just wanted to kind of update everyone about this bike. It's been quite a while since I've talked about it, and it's been sort of sitting on the back burner while we worked out some of these design changes, and then finding time for John to actually do this. So anyway, thanks for being patient with me, and I hope this video series is interesting. And I will get the next video on this will be us putting it together and going out for our ride and seeing how all these changes actually worked out.